Welcome back to this episode of Champ Talk with Branden Hudson. I'm glad to have you guys back. And like we do on every episode, let me please ask that you like, subscribe, and give us a review on any platform that you're on. It'd be nice if you were on multiple platforms to do them all: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook. But whatever one you are on, please like, subscribe, and give us a review. And give us something that's like meaningful, something you want to hear us talk about, something that impacted your life, something that changed you, you got value from. And also, if you know someone who gets value from any of these, send it to them. Give them send them a link, let them listen to it for themselves. Our job here is to help you and help people better themselves. So, another solo episode today. Man, we got into we had a crazy week. So I don't know when you guys are going to see this, but usually we're about a week or maybe 2 weeks behind. But today is July 28th. It is the week after we lost two major icons. We lost Ozzy Osbourne last week and Hulk Hogan. And why I want to bring this up is because so many layers. We're going to get into all that, but one of the things that I was thinking about was, just like how impactful like these guys were when, I was growing up and my parents were growing up. You know what I mean? Like, we've had so many people that have had so many different crazy stories. If you take Ozzy Osbourne's life and what he's done, he had all these kind of crazy, wild stories about him snorting ants and biting off bats and, listening to the devil worshiping music and all that good stuff. But, it was, he still put out some pretty damn good music. He did a lot of drugs and things like that. He had a reality show with his family, and I don't know if that was as much of a mockery as it was entertaining, but overall, it was, he was an icon, man. He was somebody who, had put out some really awesome rock music and metal, and, kind of changed the game and impacted a lot of people's lives. And, as he got older and stuff like that, you could kind of see his health deteriorate and things like that. There's a big meme going on right now that I guess he died at 76 and Hulk died at 71. And he did sex, drugs, and alcohol, and Hulk stayed in the gym, and, Hulk died. Or you choose your lane. I think it's kind of comical, kind of tasteless too, but the internet's undefeated. But Ozzy was an awesome musician, and awesome leader, and we learned a lot we enjoyed his music for a long time. But I really want to touch on the Hulk Hogan thing. That was probably one that I really wanted to bring up the most, because there's a lot of mixed opinions about, Hulk Hogan and how they feel about him. If you don't know, there was a recording of him that leaked that had him dropping the N-word pretty tastelessly. And not a lot of people didn't vibe with that. They didn't like that. They didn't think that was right. And I don't agree with it either. So let me be the first to say that. And so when you see that his passing's going, you see a lot of, just a lot of, in my opinion, just classless remarks. You know what I mean? Anytime you're trying to celebrate the dead of somebody that didn't have anything to do with you, I think that's something that's really, really classless, first of all. Anytime you're trying to be proud that somebody's dead, I think that, that's just not a good look, man. Regardless of what he done and what he said, he's still here. You know what I mean? Regardless of what he said and what he's done, he still had a family. You know what I mean? He still had people that cared about him and loved him, and miss him and are hurt, and all of that. So regardless of if you're that word or those words, you're too sensitive to hear things like that, they make you want to wish people are dead or celebrate somebody's life. It's still a human being, and you take it even farther, he was an icon. He was a wrestling icon. I'm going to come back to the way that we handle that, but he's a wrestling icon. You cannot have one without the other. You can't have just all the good. This is a weird society that we live in. You're scrutinized for everything that you say, no matter what. And, you have a lot of wrestlers that took up for him, all races. You've had a lot of people that said how much he, impacted them, and how much he took up for, them and their, being black and white and all the differences that you have. So I just think that, when you're looking at the person, Terry Hogan, who was the man, of course he's flawed. and I'm not advocating and taking up. Look, I have 2 biracial daughters. You know what I mean? I grew up in the hood. Like I'm not taking up for anybody, but I am just going to keep it real with y'all. I'm going to keep it, keep it facts. Like at the end of the day, we're all flawed, and Terry Hogan, the man, was flawed. Hulk Hogan was the international icon who everyone looked up to, and everyone wanted to be like. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, train every day. He revolutionized the sport of what WWE is. And I grew up watching him. I grew up loving him. I mean, he was a icon to me. If you were young and you watched wrestling, and before you realized it wasn't fake or whatever, that age-old argument was. The biggest argument was Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair and all the wrestling talk, right? Now, as I grew older, I didn't stick with it. And a lot of people did and do, and that's fine. It's a huge, huge sport. But to sit here and make a mockery of somebody's death who's impacted and changed and made so many people's lives because you're sensitive about words, I think that shows about equal class, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You can have your opinions. You could say, hey, really, you can do whatever you want. It's the fucking internet. You can do whatever you want. But in my opinion, and this is just Branden Hutson's opinion, you can say what you want about somebody. You can have your feelings about, whether they were good or bad. I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman that did a lot of good for a lot of people. Well, I had a run in one. He didn't do me good at all one night. And, he was a very successful person. He was, had a lot of money. He had a lot of power, and he also abused that power. And he, abused that on me one night. And guy wanted to be a bartender, or wanted to be a bouncer. You know what I mean? Because he trained a little bit of MMA here and there, jiu-jitsu, and he was a, multimillionaire. So he just liked to do it so he can, flaunt his shit with women and beat up drunks. And one night they all, I wasn't even drunk. I had 2 drinks. I just happened to be the wrong person at the wrong time. And, long story short, I was putting a lock on the middle of the highway and stomped in the face by this guy. And broke my nose, put my nose on the side of my face long before the MMA stuff. And, you know what I mean? I got up and, they're ready to take me to jail. I said, take me to jail, he going to jail, bleeding, nose crooked, all this other shit. And I did not like this man for a long time. Did not like this man at all. And I have a lot of poor choice words for him. And I rightfully so. He's a fucking asshole. He did me wrong physically. He didn't say words on the internet. He didn't talk behind my back. He literally did me wrong. You know what I mean? I had none of that I deserved at all. And then as I went further on in life and grew up and so forth, a lot of my friends were friends with, or some of my friends were friends with this guy, and he told me about all the great things that he did. And I even spoke about him not too long. He ended up passing away and dying not too long ago from leukemia, about 10 years ago, maybe even longer. And my point that I'm getting at is this guy sat here, and because he did me wrong one night and did something that I'll never forget. And if I ever had the chance, I'd whoop his fucking ass. You know what I mean? Like, let me just be honest with you. But I'm not going to bash him while he's dead. I'm not going to bash him when he passed. You know what I mean? Never once when I found out that he passed did I say good riddance. It's tasteless. It's classless. It shows the world that I have is less or equal class as he does when he decided that he did that, what he did to me that night. And I think that's kind of similar to like with the Hulk Hogan thing, right? Listen, we all have a family member, a friend of the family's. We all have somebody that says shit that ain't right. And if any of you Gen Zers or millennials, you know what I mean? If any of you guys want to, or even Gen X's, if y'all want to pretend and act like you don't have that, people act like you write them off, you're lying. I'm not saying that, if my quote unquote family member, drops a lot of homophobic slurs or racial slurs, that's the first person I'm going to hang out with, right? And I'm also certainly going to have my boundaries. You're not going to say that in front of my kids. You're not going to say that in my house. You're not going to say that in my car, my place of business. You're not going to say that around me in that way. But if you're in your house or if you're in your context or if it slips out, I'm not the fucking police to fight that battle. That's a battle between him, God, and whoever else he says it in front of the wrong person. I'm also not going to write off my family member or write off a friend because they're ignorant, or wish them dead, or be glad that they're dead, or call them a racist, or call them a homophobe, or call them any other crazy thing that you could hear. Again, we all have those people in our family that are narrow-minded and ignorant-minded, and it's just what it is. On top of that, do people change and learn over time? Because I've had family members that, you know what I mean, that were very, very discriminative back in the day. And then when I had my little black babies, all of a sudden, it changed their mind. It changed their tune. It changed the way they view things. Changed their verbiage. They changed. They realized how ignorant they were, and they didn't need me to go right fight for them or go and sit here and shout to the world how bad or how racist or how whatever the person are. They saw that their ways were fucked up and they changed. And that was because they saw the love that I had for my kids, and they saw how beautiful and amazing were my kids, and they gave their ignorant, generationally trained mentality, or what is the word I'm looking for? Generationally infused mentality. They gave that a backseat to what they saw, and they saw love, and they saw, me, and they saw these kids and so forth. And I've had that happen many times. I know many people that have changed their ways. I had a friend that he grew up in the 80s, and he was in the skinhead gangs back in the day, over in Baltimore City, in a tough city. And these were, openly bigots and racist gangs that would have these tattoos and have these things that they would say that was racist, right? That was wrong. It was skinheads. And he had tattoos that were never going to go away. Yes, he could have covered them up, but if you're rubbing two nickels together to try to survive, you ain't going to cover them up. So anyway, the man ended up finding out how foolish and how stupid that culture was and how much of a dead end it was, and he changed his ways. And he loves all people. Is he still marked with these tattoos? Of course. And he had to explain them one time because somebody else saw him. He's like, look, man, this is a long time ago when I was a teenager and I was influenced with no father figure, and this is who I decided to be. And the odd thing about it was we never battled against other races. We battled against other skinhead gangs, but it was wrong, and I'm sorry for it. And when I got out of it, I changed my ways. It's just all people are great. Do we not exonerate that man? Or do we hold him accountable for things that had nothing to do with us for 25, 35, 45 years ago? You see the logic in the thinking. You see the logic in how people act and how people behave when they hear things online, and they get all riled up and all fired up, and they get this clickbait shit in these videos, and here they are. I struggle with a lot of the things that I see on online, right? I 100% know that there are some fucked up things that go on in this world. I know for a fact that there are some bad things that go on in this world. I know that there's some discriminative things that go on in this world. But when you look at our country, United States of America, right? And you look at where we're at now versus where we were 100 years ago, right? It's a big difference. And one would say, well, that's not that long ago. Absolutely right. I'm not saying two wrongs can't be right at the same time. But I struggle with everything being deemed racist or homophobic or transphobic, or it's always got a label on it, right? When everywhere I go, and I talk to a lot of people, I see a lot of on ground zero. I don't talk to people that are just in rooms that you got to pay to be in. I'm on ground zero. None of that shit's tolerated from no culture, no ethnicity. None of that is tolerated. Whether it be in the trans issues, in the LGBTQ issues, if it's in the race issues, if it's in the immigration issues, whatever, faith issues, none of that shit's tolerated. I've never heard a Christian and a Muslim argue out of the blue about faith. Have I heard them debate? Have I heard them have, different places where they like maybe protest? Yeah. No. I'm talking about just two different people of two different races, of two different faiths, of two just randomly being natural and often observant in the wild, so to speak, just doing the regular human thing. I've never heard them say, you can't be that way. That's dumb. Never. But boy, you go online. Boy, you go online. Guys, I keep trying to remind you all and keep trying to tell you all, online is not real. It's an extension of who we are, right? And there are consequences to your actions if you're online, yes. But at the same time, if you're living your life trying to appease and please people that are online, you are doing the same thing as trying to be a people pleaser in real life. And that shit never fucking works. Ever. Ever. You can't make everyone happy. You could be, Jesus Christ Almighty, walk this earth and help people, healed people, preached love, King of Kings, and was crucified in his own hometown. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy. So if you're finding yourself getting all worked up over something that a multi-million-dollar rich icon said years ago, what does that say about your life? Don't mistake in this, what I'm saying, with going after things that are right, fighting for things that are right. Yes, I'm talking two different things. I'm talking about when you speak bad and ill upon the dead and you make that publicly known. Or when you hear comments online or hear comments that are awful and you react in a way that's not your normal self, which could potentially put you, your business, your family, everything in harm's way. That's not right. And if you make yourself look ignorant, that's not right. Listen, man, I grew up in the neighborhoods where I was the only white kid, right? I grew up in a time where they would say words like wigger, W-I-G-G-E-R. That's what they would call you, right? They would call a white boy that dressed black or dressed in hip hop or liked hip hop or taught black or whatever, or surrounded. That's what they would call you, right? I don't know if that flies today, but I would assume that word never flies today, right? And that's what I grew up in a culture, right? I used to get beat up by my white friends because they thought I was acting black. I got beat up by my black friends because they thought I was acting black. I just fucking was poor and loved hip hop. That's just what it was with me, right? No wonder I got an MMA business and I'm a fucking fighter, because I was fighting ever since I was a little kid. I had no older siblings, no older cousins, I was the oldest grandson, so I had to go out there before the fucking social media world when we were 80s and 90s babies. The 80s made us, the 90s raised us, and I had to go out there and get tough, right? And this isn't the tough guy Branden talk. I'm just giving you context. So I was the guy that saw and heard family members saying the N-word or saying, why are you hanging out with them? I was the guy that was hanging out with my friends in neighborhoods where police would come up and say, you don't belong here. Get out of here. Get out of the car. All these things. I was that guy, right? I got it on both ends. Do I know what it feels like to be somebody that has been racially abused? You know what I mean? Like just, no, I do not. I can never put myself inside of a person of color or of the shoes of a person of, different faith. No, I cannot. But I'll tell you what, I experienced some shit. I also used to get punched in the face because I was white, just for no reason. We also used to get our bikes stolen and punched in the face. We drive by or ride our bikes by, a group of guys outside. Then it was what it was. And it's not right. And I'm not saying, what I'm trying to explain to you is, okay, is I've seen that world, and my roots and my true heart is in hip hop, is in the urban city life, city development, right? And then I had I had my two daughters, right? My Taylor and Tiaja, right? And I remember I was with my best friend, right? He's black. And we were out one night. My daughters were young. They were like 1 and 2. We were out in the club one night, and we're leaving the club, and a group of white boys are going off, and one of them shoot out that N-word, and the hard R, not my friend. They were saying it away. And boy, I'll tell you what, I got fucking hotter than hell. You know what I mean? I was ready to go. What's up? You know, I'm talking to my boy. What's up? You ready to go? Da, 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 da. And he's like, you know, calm down. What are you worried about? And I'm like, yo, you hear what he just said? Da, 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 da. He said, dude, if I fought every time I heard that word, I'd be in prison or dead. I'd be fighting all my life. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I've ever had in my life about how you react when you hear ignorance. I was only 21, 22 years old. I was very young. But when he told me that, after what I just heard those ignorant motherfuckers say, and I was ready to go off the wall and get fighting in a town, in a resort town, which I probably would have been locked up, probably would have been facing more charges like I was racking up back then. It was a huge lesson for me. And it carried me 25 years later. You know, we got to get out of this cancel culture bullshit. You know what I mean? We got to get out of this everybody's this and everybody's that labeling and saying shit. And we got to start looking at loving people and healing people and riding with people. Believe it or not, guys, I'm going to make some mistakes myself. I'm going to say some stupid shit. This episode right alone might get me in trouble. Who the fuck knows with the cancel culture? But who knows? I'm going to say some things that are going to not always be what the bulk of the people like and what the bulk of the people agree with. And I'm going to make some mistakes. Does that mean y'all are gone and you don't listen to Champ Talk no more? Maybe, perhaps. Does that mean y'all were really loyal and really subscribers? I'm not talking about subscribers to a channel. I'm talking about subscribers to the ideology. You're not going to agree with everybody all the time. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us beautiful. You're not going to agree with someone 100% of the time. And you look at politics, dude. Oh my gosh, dude. So much hypocrisy, so much hate, so much division. Over what? Over two elitists that you and I are never going to fucking meet? You're worried about that? Yes, there's issues that you have that they are in responsible for. Yes, but getting online or hating your fellow American family member, friend, over shit that other people say, you know, I would hate to be on my deathbed and have to realize I spent so much of my time in my life worried about that shit and not loving and helping and healing and being with my family and friends. I would hate that. That would be a punch to the dick. But we haven't. For someone like, you know, Hulk Hogan, who so many people looked up to, changed the game for so many people in that industry, give opportunity to so many people. You know, if Hulk Hogan wasn't as big as he was, right, some of your local, smaller wrestling organizations would not exist. Meaning some of your friends and family who are in love with wrestling will not have a chance to go do what they love. And I have a handful of people I know that do professional wrestling entertainment. I have a handful of people that do that. If WWE and Hulk Hogan did not exist, you would have so many people missing out on their callings and things that they wanted to do. And I don't even know. I don't have any statistics for you, but who knows the amount of charities and the amount of jobs and all these. I mean, who knows? But to sit here and be thankful that someone's dead and celebrate that someone died, and to be thankful that, you know, this quote unquote racist piece of shit is gone. It speaks a lot about your character. It speaks how much class that you don't have. It speaks how many things you probably need to work on in your own life, and it's truly hypocritical. Because I know all people, we all have those family members, we all have those people in our lives that we're just not proud of. They could do better. We love them. They're 90% of them are awesome. 10% of them are not. What do? Do we wish that person dead? Do we never speak to that person? I do not run my life on hate. I run my life on love. I run my life on trying to help and build. There are times you got to cut people off. There are times you got to say, hey, enough is enough. We can't rock like this anymore. I don't run my life on that. That's not what I do. And you shouldn't either, because it's a detriment to everything. And here's the other side of it, right? You know, maybe there's no direct repercussions as to somebody coming up and doing something direct. But if it's online, it's on there forever. And people are watching. People are watching your shit. You get way more views than you do likes and engagement online. That's just the way it is. More people see your shit and look at your shit and don't say nothing, don't comment, don't like, don't do nothing, because they don't want anyone to know that they looked at your shit. But it's a very, very lopsided number. For every 1,000 views you have, you'll be lucky to get 4 or 5 likes and comments. So at the end of the day, you need to really think about that when you're saying some hate online or some stupid shit online or some judgmental bigotry or small-minded shit online just because the everyone else is. Do I agree with what Hulk Hogan said? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't agree with them at all. But that doesn't mean that I'm sitting here and gonna go down that rabbit hole of, he did this, she did that, and all that. It's just, I'm not going to ruin my business and my life for somebody else. Not for people who are elitists. Not for people who are in a space that I'm never going to connect with or whatever. No, it's not. Would I work for somebody like that? No. Would I be buddy and no. But I'm not going to wish anybody that. Again, you got to think about what you're saying here and what you're doing, folks. That's going to segue into this episode is brought to you by God's Country Harvest. All right. God's Country Harvest is ran by Thomas Hornsby. He's a good friend of mine. He has eggs, he has cattle, he has chickens, he has bacon, man, they just do it all down there, man. He's a hardworking man. He's got a good business that run, and they've been supporting of SBY, Champ Talk, and me and my brand for over 15 years now. So check out God's Country Harvest and for all of your farmers market needs. So let me give you some tips. All right. Let me give you some tips. Before you post anything that you think is questionable, if it's questionable, don't post it. Okay. If you think it's something that you shouldn't post, don't post it. If you think it's that questionable, but you're on the fence, wait a day, wait 2 days, wait 3 days. That post ain't going nowhere. Okay. Remember that there's more people watching your shit than you realize. There's more people looking at you. One of the things I do when I hire people over at the Maryland and Delaware group of EXP, the first thing I do is check their social media. I look up who is this person? Who is this person that I'm about to hire? What kind of image do they have online? Does the image that they have online match the image that they gave me in the interview? Are they really heavy in politics? Are they really heavy in opinionation? Are they, I look at all that stuff. And there has been people's social media that has made or broke them. There's one guy I was looking at that was trying to get a job with us, and he was a realtor. And like that very next day, he got in a fight and blasted the video online and talked all this shit. And no, you're done. We don't need that. And I'm a fighter. But the way that you do things online is going to be an extension of you. Social media is not a real place. Okay, it's a place where people go on and pretend to be something they're not. They pretend to be something they're not, and they're marketing stuff that they want you to buy, right? Other than that, it's majority hate, majority of just flexing, majority of just lying, okay? So, but it is an extension of who you are. So, you've got to be careful with the way that you go about your social media life. If you're constantly getting riled up on everything that clickbaits you in, I mean, dude, you're an easy person to manipulate, in my opinion. You're an easy person to manipulate. If you're a person that takes time and is cautious with how you respond to certain topics, then, that's going to say something in business. It's going to speak volumes to you when someone's thinking about doing business with you or thinking about, potentially hiring you, right? And I'll tell you firsthand, I've had many cases where I would be at a party or, we would be, at the after hours where, we got done, dropped somebody off and hung out for a little bit, because we didn't want to end night then. And I meet a random person, tell them, something very, very brief, they asked me about this or whatever. And, I'm like, hey man, I own a small gym in town. And then the minute they come out of the bathroom, they already looked me up. Well, dude, you didn't tell me this, that, and third. You're a big deal. Da, da, da. Like, that's exactly what people do all the time. The minute you walk away, they look your ass right up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the accounts. They're going to see who you are. They're going to see what you're about. And they're going to base their judgment upon that. You're an extension of who you are. So it's not real. but it also could fucking kill you and kill your business if you don't do the right things. So just be smart. Just be smart with how you go about it and stop all the fucking hate, man. All this clickbaiting, all this hate, all this stuff that's sitting here not important, okay? Go outside. That's one of the biggest things to me that I shake my head at and discuss is like, we have all these issues that people have. You know, everybody's got an issue with something, right? But most of the time, these issues are coming from people's couches or at people at work when they're sitting here, you know, doing their mundane job, going through the mundane parts of life. And they're just bitching. They're just fucking bitching. Like, what are you bitching about? Right? You got all these issues with the government, all these issues with, you know, this person, that person, and you're not doing nothing about it. For me, I'm on ground zero. I'm on ground zero. I get every walk of life come through my gym. Okay, there's a funny meme about combat sports gyms where, you know what I mean, it's the ultimate government experiment, right? Social experiment. You have a lawyer, a criminal, a police officer, fireman, a construction worker, a housewife. You have every single person that you can think of in one room at a time, literally trying to choke each other out or trying to tap each other out and then saying thank you and connecting afterwards when you're done. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen, but it's the most ground zero things that I've ever been a part of, because we actually can talk about things on an even level. Because one thing you can't do on the mats, you can't fake or lie what it is, what you're about on the mats, right? When I see people grapple, for instance, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I can tell most of the time, I'm almost always right, I can tell what kind of person that person is by the way that they grapple. I can tell by how if they're a bully or not. You know, usually a person that's grappled on the mats with a bully is extra rough with the females or extra rough with lesser talent. And then when someone else who have better talent or is tougher or stronger than them puts it on them, they tend to tap early and fold quicker. I could tell they're a bully. I could tell by the people that are super analytical and overthinking, where they can't make a move without, you know what I mean, having it thought through, which they get stuck and pinned and they can't go anywhere. I could tell people who have had some sort of trauma in their life and how they how defensive and how reluctant they are to go in to a grappling match or a sparring session. I could tell people that are fighting demons that are there to heal the pain because of how far they're willing to punish themselves and kill themselves for just a role or just a match because they're, you know, battling some sort of demons and they want to feel. You can tell a lot about somebody on the mats. And those after training session conversations, when you've just sat here and went to war with somebody, you're bleeding, you're sweating, you're out of breath, you're exhausted, whatever the case may be. And then you have those conversations where you guys are talking about life, talking about whatever's going on in the news. And then you come from some real authentic perspectives, right? And all perspectives don't have to be agreed upon, but they're respected. They're respected. I never shut somebody's perspective down. I find so much value in other people's perspectives. I find so much value in sitting here and being able to learn from so many people. Dude, I ask everybody questions. I ask everybody, is this right? Does this make sense? How can I improve? How can I get better? I don't limit my questioning to just the people that I look up to or admire or mentor me. I ask anybody in the room, what did you think? How did you feel? What was your thoughts on that? What do you think we could have done better? Do you think this looks right? Do you think this feels right? Can we make this happen? Dude, I'm a student of the game. And that's like some of the conversations you'll get off of the mats is like you're getting different perspectives from everybody who you don't know who they are, where they're from, what they've done in their life, what they've been through. You know, we only tell but so much in a conversation anyway. You know what I mean? Man, when you get the opportunity to share different perspectives with different people, it gives you an opportunity to grow, gives you an opportunity to love, gives you an opportunity to heal. And this country and this world needs healing. We need to love more. We need to work on becoming more unified and focusing on what, dude, look, I'm not trying to get like super like tinfoil hat or super religious on you or anything like that. But I know from being in the different places that I've been and different kind of backgrounds and different kind of people, there's a bigger enemy than each other that's coming for us. There's a bigger enemy that's coming for us. And I believe it's right versus wrong. I don't believe it's rich versus poor. I used to think that when I was poor. When I was poor, I used to think it was rich versus poor. But it's more about the haves versus the have-nots, right? But not even with the haves versus the have-nots as much as the haves that have it and are abusing it. Even the have-nots that don't have it and will do anything for it. There's an enemy coming for our kids. There's an enemy coming for us. There's an enemy coming for all of the things that we stand for as people, right? Who exactly that enemy is? Some might say it's the devil. Some might say it's aliens. Some might say it's whoever, right? But at the end of the day, if you just look around and you look how disrespectful the youth is, and you look how bad of an example the elderly set, and bad of an example as the men and women that are my age and in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And if you look around at how mad people are and how angry people are and how nobody has any time for anybody and how many fatherless children are out here and how much of perversion and all this, you know what I mean, these rights that are being violated, and you look at these countries that are going through war and these countries that are oppressed, these people that are oppressed. I mean, dude, this isn't just fucking random. There's an enemy out here, and the enemy is way bigger than just what somebody said on the fucking internet. Our mission is to get right and have each other's backs and build as a community and have differences and have different mindsets so that we can grow and be understanding and open to what people are saying. Our time's running out. Our time is running out. Let me give you a little math equation real quick. The average lifespan for a woman is 82 years. For a man, it's 70 years. 78, excuse me. So let's just go in the middle. Let's say, right? That's 80 years, okay? 80 years is the average lifespan. And if you think about that and you take, right, 52 weeks, which is 52 weeks in a year, and you multiply that by 80, you get a number of 4,160, okay? 4,160 weeks that you have in the average lifespan, okay? Now think about this. So let's just break it down for an even number. So if you've got 4,000 weeks in an average lifespan and you're 40 years old, you got 2,000 Mondays left. If you're 60 years old, you got 1,000 weekends left. If you're 20 years old, you got 3,000 Friday nights left. When you think about that, and there's another equation, I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'm not going to bore you, but there's another equation when you break that down into how many. Kent Clothier, he's a great speaker, businessman, so forth. I heard him say this. You break that down into awake hours you're actually awake and not sleeping. The number's even crazier. But if you got to think, man, if I'm 44 years old, right, I've got just under 2,000 more on average Fridays left, 2,000 more weekends left, 2,000 more Monday mornings left. That runway is getting a lot shorter than it was when I was 20 years old, when I was 16 years old. So if you're in your 40s, you got 2,000 more weekends that you get to celebrate left. And think about that. Not all those weekends are going to be able to be celebrated. Because, I mean, what happens when you get to your golden years? And we're going to waste our time. We're going to waste the next 2,000 weeks, 3,000 weeks, worrying about what people say on the internet. When we have so many atrocities happening to our people, so many atrocities happening to the people that we care about, the people that are in other countries, the weak, so many kids are being violated. We're going to care about what people say on the internet or what some celebrity says. We're going to care what some person in the neighborhood or in the city that, we live into because they did something stupid. We're going to bash them and go, with our pitchforks and our mobs and the internet mobs just going to make sure that everybody knows how bad of a person they are instead of trying to help and heal them. I'm not wasting my life trying to tear down people. I've spent a lifetime of violence. I've spent a lifetime of getting punched in the face, and not in MMA, but because I was white, or because I was in the wrong neighborhood, or because because I liked hip hop, and I thought I was black, and all these other reasons. I've spent enough of my life getting actually physically fighting. I've actually fought for everything that I've ever had. And I talked about this on the podcast, but actually physically fighting and standing up for myself and fighting for the right thing. I've spent enough of my life arguing and battling with shit that doesn't fucking matter. What matters is how much we love one another and have each other's backs. And Charleston White said this, and I love what he said. The first thing we can do is we can look in the mirror and we can start working on that person first and fixing that person. That's the first thing we can do. We can start looking in the motherfucking mirror and fixing that person first. And then the second thing we can do is we can walk around our house, our home, and we can look around our home and see what needs to be repaired, and needs to be fixed there. Whether it be people or things, we walk around our house and we start repairing what needs to be repaired in our household. It'll be our relationship, how our kids view things, shit that's actually around our house, our yard, whatever. And then finally, we can go outside and we can wave to our neighbors and be neighborly and see how we can help our neighbors. And that hit me real hard because I don't like to talk to my neighbors. And it's not because I have anything against my neighbors. It's because I've dealt with so many people on a consistent basis that I just want to just kind of be home and do my thing, that I neglect the fact that my neighbors are the most important people around me. They're in my fucking neighborhood. If something went down in our neighborhood, we would need all of our neighbors to get together and band together to make sure that we can defend our neighborhood. It's common sense. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, Jesus, I don't even want to speak to my neighbor. I just want to say hi and get in the house real quick because I don't want to be caught up in a conversation when these are the fucking people that live right next to me. And that's what we need to be doing as a society. And then once we talk to our neighbors and we get our neighborhood right, we help our neighbors, then we can start helping our culture, our community, and our culture. We can start building. As long as we stay cooped up on the motherfucking internet, on our phones, sitting on our couches, eating the food that they give us, gaining the weight that we should be gaining, watching the mindless shit that they put on TV and entertain us with, we're never going to be able to help anybody. We're never going to be able to grow. We're going to be stuck in this hateful, we're going to be doing exactly what the enemy wants us to do. So, salute to Hulk Hogan. I don't agree with everything the man did, but he was an incredible icon, a hero to me. And, it was a pleasure watching his life unfold in front of my eyes and being able to be entertained. And salute to Ozzy Osbourne. I barely even listened to the music. I just know the hits. But he had some great music, and he's a phenomenal musician, and didn't agree with the man, but the entertainer was an icon. And salute to you people that feel the same way that I do, that are trying to change the world, make a difference, love each other, heal each other, grow our communities, grow our families, and fight against the enemy that's trying to take all that away from us. Whoever that is. Evil comes in many different ways, shapes, and forms. So whoever that is, keep fighting a good fight. I hope you guys got something from this. Please like, share, and leave a review. Rate this podcast, please. And again, if somebody could get value out of this, man, send it over to them. And whatever you guys think, let me know. Give me a comment. Hit me up. Tell me how much this pissed you off or how much this touched you. I really want to. I read all of them, but I really want to hear the good things, man. Until next time, guys. What are you doing today to become a champion?